Hello, I'm Jim Weathers with Marel. Today we're going to do a pork carcass cutting for you. We're going to show you how we're going to take this hog, the side here, this pork. We're going to cut it into the primals. Now we'll go through. I'm going to show you how to cut it, where to cut it, and what primals come off. And may mention along the way how our equipment fills in and what we do with our equipment on these pork cuts. This not fine hog. We had a process at Iowa State. Brought it down. If you see the skin's all on it, as I cut it off, we make the machinery that'll remove all the skin from these primals. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll cut the ham off. We'll cut the hind leg off it, and by doing this, we'll have a meat saw and use our knives, and we'll go through. And there's an H bone, the bone socket on this hind quarter. We're going to move in about an inch toward the loin on the ham, and we're going to go ahead and cut down through the vertebrae and through the bones underneath. And when I get through, you'll be able to hear I'm through the bone. I'll go ahead and take my knife and I'll finish the cut. Okay, sounds like we're there. Grab my trusty knife here. We'll go ahead and remove the ham. We've done there. Got that off. Ham's off, leaves us the middle, the loin and the belly are together. Now we're going to cut the shoulder off. There's a jowl hooked onto the shoulder. I'm going to leave that on until we process the shoulder into it. We're going to go in about 1.5 ribs down the vertebrae, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut the shoulder off. And on this shoulder we have two cuts. We have the Boston roast, our pork butt, and we have the picnic. So we're going to go ahead and get this lined up. Same thing, we'll just cut through her. Going through the blade bone right now. Drive her through, take the knife, finish the cut. Now, I don't know if I'm doing this. We always recommend wearing protective personal equipment when you're doing this. So I've got a cut-resistant glove on this hand. I've got a metal mesh glove. I've got a arm guard on there as well as some belly protection underneath here. So, okay, there's our three first main cuts. We cut the shoulder off. We have the middle, which is the loin, and the belly still attached, and we have the ham. Okay, on our next step, we're going to take our front shoulder. We're going to break it down. We're going to move the Boston roast, the pork butt off of the picnic, and we also have the jowl, and we're going to cut the jowl off of this too. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and cut the foot off of it. Pretty much bone all the way through, so I'm not going to bother with my knife. We'll just cut that. We've got the foot off. Okay. Now we can go ahead. I'm going to, if you can see, we've got the jowl that's cut off near the head. This jowl will have to come off, so let's take a knife and we'll cut off our jowl. We'll go to trimmings. Next step is we're going to do is let's take the neck bone out of it. So we'll go ahead and pull this neck bone out. There you go. Got a nice soup bone there for neck bone. Neck bone comes out. Okay. This butt, the pork butt picnic separation is pretty important. There's an artery here you can't see that gives me a guide, but I'll go just about an inch toward the butt on this and start cutting down. I've got to go through the blade bone. Should be able to hear when I get through it. Cut it further through the knife. There we go. Okay, through the bone. We'll go ahead and separate. Okay, here's our picnic, and here's our Boston roast. So these are primals will run on our machines. This will be an auto butt fatter. Run this in an open top Skinner, an SK11 350 would run that. All right, on the next step, we're going to take the middle section that has our loin, bone-in loin on, and also has our belly on it with the spare ribs in it. I'm going to take the saw. We're going to cut through the rib bones, separate these two pieces. It's a pretty critical part. We have our tenderloin laying in here. We want to make sure we don't hit, and just try to cut this all out. I'll cut through the bones partially, and then I'll use my knife to finish the cut. So I line that. I'm just about an inch in from this vertebrae up here. We're going to aim just off of the tenderloin on the end. A little bit tough, but we're almost there. There we go. Get through the rib bones. I'll go ahead and finish the cut with my knife. Come in. Lay the loin out. You see there? It's the skin on the loin. Okay, now what we have left is the belly, but the spare ribs are still in. So we're going to go ahead and cut those out. Cut as close to the bone as I can. Try to leave as much meat on the belly as we can, but I'll just come along and follow these bones out. Remove the spare rib. There we go. Come on, good. Okay, there's our spare ribs out. What we have left is the full belly. And we'll take this and we'll take it to our skinning machine. We'll skin those. Okay, our next step, we're going to take the bone-in loin, and the skin and the fat back are still attached. So I can just go ahead and cut that off. In big industry, they have machinery to do this, but in almost every other case, you'll have to come in with the straight knife and remove this fat and the skin from the loin. Try not to get into the lean of the loin. Lay this back. There we go. That worked out well. Okay, so I got the fat back. What we have left is the loin, a little bit of fat left on it. So we can trim that up and process the loin further from there. All right, on the next step, we're back to the ham. We're going to take the foot off the ham, and I'm going to go through and show you how old school we're going to try to de-skin and defat this ham by hand. So it's a little bit of a process. It might take me a little time. But first thing, we're right here, the knuckle of the ham. We're going to go right into that area. Take the foot off. And much like the front shoulder, that bone's going to go all the way through, so I can cut it all the way off with the saw. Don't need the knife for that. Okay, I'm going to try to skin this ham by hand now, and of course it's real critical that we try to stay out of the meat, so it's a little bit of a trick to try to follow the skin around. Try to remove this. I'm going to go ahead and lay this side back. Here we go. Feather that out. Okay. Got to release. I'm just going to come around. Try to cut as close to the skin as I can. And we make a machine that will do this a lot quicker, a lot more efficient, that we'll be showing you later on in this video. That would really speed this up and save on the meat and the yield. Okay. So we got the ham cap off. What's left is our ham. No skin, no fat.
Here's an example of our SK11350 skinning machine. This demonstrates how we can take the skin off of the ham while leaving the fat. Notice how much faster and more efficient it is.
I'd like to show you the two hams that we processed up to this point. This ham I did earlier, I did with a straight knife. As hard as I tried, it was hard to stay out of the lean. A lot of the lean went out of the fat. Versus the ham we ran on our machine that left all the lean intact. We took a thin skin off. You can see the nice conformed fat cover to this ham. Now that we've got our carcass broke down and skinned, we put it back together just to show you where everything goes again. First thing that we had was a ham. It's all ready to go. The belly, spare ribs, we've got a bone-in loin. We have the picnic, and we have the Boston roast, or the pork butt, and the jowl. So we're going to go ahead and start boning these out. I'm going to move some of the product back out of the way here. And we'll go back to the shoulder. We got the picnic in the butt, and we'll bone these out. On our next step, we're going to bone the front shoulder out. We're going to start with the picnic. We got the picnic skinned. No more skin patches on it. I'm going to go ahead and bone it out. This would typically be used for going to trimmings, pork trimmings off this picnic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in, trying to stay as close as the bone as I can. It's like any boning operation. I want to leave the meat on the meat package and none on the bone. So I'm just going to go around following the bone, opening it up. Keep going along, just follow the bone around the knob. There we go. Okay, we've got the meat, we've got the bone off. Leaving as this picnic meat package. It can be used in a lot of different things. Usually it goes into pork trimmings. This is goes into ground pork, or any other ground product. Leaves us the shoulder. Many times this will be sold bone in, but many times it's boned out, formed back into a roast package. Typically used in your pulled pork. So I'm going to go right ahead and just try to take the blade bone out for you here. Get around that knob on that. There we go. Okay, we've got our blade bone out. Clean that up a little bit. It leaves our boneless pork butt. It can be netted, sold as a roast, or used for pulled pork. Our next step, we're going to take our bone-in pork loin here. We've already got it. This is one we skinned by hand. There's no fat on already. I'm going to pull the tenderloin out. We're going to cut the ham in or the sirloin off, make a roast out of that. Then we'll pull the backbones and the back ribs out. So the first step, I'll go ahead and come down, follow along the bone. Nice piece of meat here, this tenderloin, so we'll strip that out. The tenderloin. We'll go ahead and mark this sirloin. Cut this roast off. Comes off there like that nicely. See the fat and the meat there. Make a nice rolled roast. You can make that. You can bone that out or cook that bone in. The next step, I'm going to go ahead and pull the back ribs out. So I still have my vertebrae, the feather bones on. I'm going to score down along it, come along and remove the rib bones from this loin. And again, try to keep as close to the ribs as we can. There we go. Perfect. Okay, what we have is our back ribs. Still have our feather bones attached. We'll come back and saw those off. The leaving is our bone-in, or boneless loin now. In our next step, I'm going to show you how to bone out a ham. This is a ham we did earlier. It's skinned, boned. There's major muscles within this ham that we want to separate out using the natural seams. So it exposes the internal fat so we can get at it, make it easier for our machinery to take away. So there's a little bit of technique to this. Other than taking the bones out, I'm going to have to separate it using over through the natural seams of the ham, and I'll show you how to do that. Three major muscles on a ham. We have an outside muscle, we have the knuckle muscle, we have the inside muscle. So as I step through this, I'll separate these muscles out. I'll tell you how I'm doing it, and try to show you how we're doing it. First step, the H-bone, ball and socket joint is right here. So we're going to remove the meat from the H-bone. I'm just going to go cut along as close as I can to the bone, and relieve this bone enough where I can pop through this ball and socket. A little tough to see, but once I pop it, it lays right open. I remove the H-bone. It's out. Moving next, we'll take the shank meat off this. Shank meat isn't worth a great deal. A lot of tendons in it. Usually goes into ground pork, into processing. So we'll take those off. I'll remove one shank there. Stand it up here. Remove the meat from between the shanks. Remove the other shank. And also this time I can just remove this whole shank going out over there. Okay, we have the main body bone left. All the main muscles are still intact. So what I'm going to do is remove this inside muscle. There's a natural seam that lays down flat. This piece, this muscle's pancake shaped, lays flat on the ham. So I'm going to lay my knife down and follow this natural seam and open it up. Again, I'm just going to go in, follow along the bone best I can. Now that I've got it opened up, I'm going to remove this inside muscle. So if I hit just the right spot, hopefully you can see it's a silver membrane that lays in between these muscles. It's real important for our process to hit this seam, hit this natural seam, which I did there. You can see the silver there. You can see I laid that out right through the natural seam. So there's our inside muscle. We'll take that to a machine later, and we'll remove the rest of the membrane and fat from it. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the main body bone out. Okay, that bone out. Just leaving us a couple more muscles here. The knuckle muscle I mentioned earlier. I'm going to trim that up a little as we go. But once again, it's got a natural seam. I'm going to roll out. Just pull along it. There we go. That came out nicely. There's our knuckle muscle. A little bit of wispy fat on it that we're going to remove later in our next step. Trim that up a bit, and that's ready to go. We're leaving as our outside muscle now. I want to point out one other thing. There's another natural seam that lays under these it's called a light butt, dark butt. It just goes by the color. We've got a little bit of this dark butt we'll throw into trimmings. And we'll try to go into this natural seam. Again, you can see I'm pulling that back to pull out the light butt. That's something we can take to our machine as well, clean up and be used in a ham process. The light butt. Now you see I've got the outside muscle. All the interior fat is exposed. All I need to do at this point is just open it up and remove some of the heavy kernel fat that's internal on this ham. Trying to leave the membrane. And that's ready to go.
Here we have an inside muscle being run on our machine. We're using this to remove the fat and membrane from the meat. Here we are running a couple of knuckle muscles. As before, we are cleaning the fat and membrane from the meat for further processing. Now we are running the outside muscle, which is the largest of the three ham muscles, on our SK11320 membrane skinning machine. As you can see, it might take a few passes to get all the heavy membrane off.
To finish up on what we've done so far, we've laid out all our primal cuts out here, boned out, skinned out. I want to go through everything with you, just to review where we started. I'll start up at the front here, front of the carcass. We've cut the jowl off the front shoulder. We've taken that into trimmings. We boned out the picnic. As I mentioned before, this picnic will go into more likely into grind products, into ground pork, as well as our Boston butt, which we boned out. We would use a machine called the AT21 auto butt trimmer for this. It would take off the skin and the fat off of this product. Going down, we've got the belly, the midsection. We pulled out the spare rib. We left the belly. We would inject this belly on the IN33 injector, and we would skin it with the model SK15340 belly skinner. Moving over to the loin, we pulled the back ribs off, cut them off the backbone. We've got a nice set of back ribs. We've got the pork tenderloin that came off the loin, and we've got the boneless loin. On this loin, we used our open top skinner to take the skin off. Normally, it would go through a process that would pull the fat back off of the loin, and we'd use our SK15320 skinny machine to skin the fat back. Also, I boned out the ham end, the loin roast that was on the front here. Make a nice little roast out of that. We're down to the ham now, and remember we defatted this ham. We skinned it on the SK11 350 open top utility skinner. Took the skin off, we defatted it, we boned it out. What we have is our outside muscle, our knuckle, the inside muscle, a light butt, and the shanks. So that's the subprimals of that primal cut of the ham. If you ever have any information on our equipment, you go to Marel.com. You'll see our whole line of equipment, grading, all sorts of different things we can do for the whole process.